Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Griffington. Folks, this episode is going to depart from our usual fare here on the Wright Flyer. This is because this episode is a constitutional special edition. We here at the Wright Flyer take our commitment and mission to spreading greater knowledge with respect to our Constitution very seriously. However, due to the contentious and heated nature of this current election cycle, we haven't had the time to do a program specifically dedicated to a particular portion or aspect of the Constitution. Nevertheless, recent events on the campaign trail clearly indicate that there is one particular aspect of the Constitution that can be covered that corresponds with the entire election or campaign trail that we've been seeing thus far. As you are all aware, New York businessman, billionaire, real estate tycoon, and all-around vulgarian Donald J. Trump has been shrouded in controversy. This has been the case ever since he first officially threw his hat in the ring last year. Now, however, violence has been surrounding his rallies and campaign events. Some of his most vocal acolytes have come out and said that those who have chastised him for inciting violence are openly encroaching upon his First Amendment right to free speech. Of course, Jeremy and I have addressed this issue on past episodes of the Wright Flyer. We've explained that the First Amendment doesn't extend to every form of speech that's out there. In fact, it would be asinine to think that that was the case. But, you know, there's a certain esoteric nature with all of this. And it ties into the fact that the courts have long held that words which are uttered for the sole purpose of inciting violence are not afforded constitutional protection. This is what is known as the fighting words doctrine. Apparently, this thought has never crossed the mind or even the hairpiece of Donald Trump. He doesn't consider it important, or, more likely, simply lacks the knowledge about it. That's unfortunate because he's seeking the highest office in the land. We demand better than this. But I don't see it getting better anytime soon.
You know what I would like to see? I would like to see individuals hold each other accountable, and actually not only hold each other accountable, but encourage each other to exercise their First Amendment right. Encourage each other to speak up when they feel that, you know, there's a difference that is being placed between them or somebody else. And support those individuals. Not only encourage them, but support them. If you have someone who supports Donald Trump, and somebody who supports Ted Cruz, or even, you know, there may be a small, you know, grain of substance in an individual who supports the Democratic Socialist nerd-face Sanders, or the whore of Babylon, Hillary Hildebeest Clinton. But even then, any of those individuals to say, you know what, it's our right to have a difference of opinion. It's our right to speak out against these candidates if they don't, you know, toe the line that we have, if they don't support what we support. That's what I want to see. Instead of people saying, you know, Trump is, I don't like Trump because he doesn't support the Second Amendment. And then, you know, next thing there's his supporters calling them a bunch of racists and everything else. It's ridiculous.
Well, we've seen that civil discourse has been the first victim of this 2016 presidential election cycle. That's been the way that it's been ever since Donald threw his hat in the ring. And I hate to place the blame. No, I don't. I love placing the blame where blame is due because we hold people accountable here. As you say all the time, Jeremy, the truth has no agenda. And the
Mhm.
truth is that Donald Trump is the one that has created this negative atmosphere. He is the one that has tranced upon and trampled upon this entire notion of civil discourse. Now, granted, this is something that has been dying or fading away since the 2008 election. So we've seen this going away for 8 years and potentially longer than that. I just noticed that the trend has vastly accelerated from the point of 2008 onwards, and a lot of that comes from the gutless opposition party's detente wing trying to bully everybody into just supporting whoever they select. It's as though they have created a coronation. And part of the problem that we're having with this election cycle thus far is that they tried to create this system that would funnel in a candidate early on. Well, it backfired because they didn't understand or they didn't fathom that a vulgarian like Trump could resonate with the people. They thought that he would falter within the first months, or at least at the first time that he committed a gaffe, and they were banking on that. And, well, it backfired.
Sure. Which happens quite a bit. That's called the boomerang effect.
Mm-hmm.
It happens when individuals throw all of this hyperbole out there. They create all of this Trumpganda, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes, flying right back at them. And I'm going to say this right now. There's nothing that anybody's going to do to stop it as far as it going back on them. In fact, we here at the Wright Flyer are going to do everything we can to throw it back on them because that is what they deserve. They must be held accountable. And if nobody else wants to hold them accountable, we will hold them accountable.
That's part of going for the truth. And it's why we've always been dedicated to it. Jeremy, this is part of the problem that I have with Trump. He claims that he would hire the best people, that he would do any and everything necessary to secure our nation and to supposedly make us great again. If he truly is going to hire the best and brightest people, then why in the hell hasn't he done so already? It's not as though it's incredibly difficult to understand the limitations of the First Amendment. And it's not that the right to free speech is limited. Rather, it's that the nature of the right has been misunderstood. We've always said here on the Wright Flyer that we must exercise our fundamental and inalienable rights in a responsible fashion. Our rights end where another sovereign citizen's rights begin. That's just par for the course. That's the truth. It's the only thing that makes sense with respect to our rights. And that's just the way it's always worked. But if we listened to the stuff that is said by the loudest and most ardent supporters of Donald, we would conclude that there's some grand conspiracy, some grand coispiracy going on with the Donaldus, which has been purposefully orchestrated against the vulgarian hairpiece, which is why it is a coispiracy.
Sure.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
I'm not buying it either. And as far as, limitations on our rights, well, in a way there is. The limitations on our rights come at the point of when we exercise our rights in recklessly in violation of another person's rights. That's where the limitations are. And that is what has been negated, ignored, forgotten, and otherwise just wiped right out of the frontal lobes of individuals. That's one of the biggest problems. And that what that does is, that breeds complacency. It breeds ignorance. it creates the perception of reality that, well, so long as I'm okay, who cares about anybody else? There's the moral compass has been smashed. The ethical barometer is just thrown right out the window.
Hmm.
You have all of these things happening at once because there's a lack of understanding of what it is with our rights and how to exercise them.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's more, I think the American people are a lot smarter than Donald is giving them credit for. He seems to think that he has all the answers. In fact, that's exactly what he would have us believe. It's all a bunch of lunacy. It has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States. Nevertheless, Donald is going to double down on his attempts to characterize himself as a victim. It's truly laughable that he claims that he would rather be correct than politically correct. Yet he adopts the victim mentality of political correctness. And you see, folks, if you think back to the first debate in where he tried to go after Ted Cruz for saying the New York values thing, and he likened it to 9/11 as if the Texas senator was attacking New York City itself and the people because of 9/11. No, what Ted Cruz was doing was speaking to a past statement that the Donaldists had made, one of his consistently inconsistent statements. But, from a Trumpaganda point of view, that doesn't matter. And then, of course, the quaffspiracists like Alex Jones are just going to go out there and peddle it in a way that is detrimental to Cruz because they are die-in-the-wool Trumpists. They are the Trump shirts, going out in their hair shirts to try and prove their undying, unwavering loyalty to the Donaldists. But that's not the type of cult of personality that should be accepted in the United States. We are a representative republic. It is time for the American people to take back their power. It is time for the American people to realize that it is their power that has been encroached upon. And Donald is just not the solution. I don't see any practicable or real-world solutions being proffered by this charlatan and con artist.
And again, it speaks to the aspect and everything that he's done in regards to violating people's First Amendment rights, even premeditated violations of their First Amendment rights. Like lifting the libel and slander laws.
Yeah, in fact, we'll be getting into that a little bit later.
And an article that we read earlier regarding written by David Limbaugh. While reading through that article, all I could think about was the Trumpaganda that has been spewed, not only by him, but now his right-hand man, Corey Goebbels Lewandowski.
Yeah.
When he's come out and attacked certain individuals for this, or said, that super PAC ad about, that has no relation to the Cruz campaign. And
we'll be getting into that too.
Yeah,
we will.
And so all these things have become a cauldron of personified evil, is what it is.
And it goes down the line of what they try and say, that perception matters more than anything else in politics. I think that's what Donald is trying to do. He doesn't care about the truth. It's all about the perception of it. That's what he aims for. That is what's wicked. That's what makes it jump into the realm of propaganda instead of mere information or media.
Mm-hmm. Again, it creates the problem. He's got his witchy wig on, standing there, toil, tumble and troil, and all the blah, blah, blah. Trumpacadabra, we're going to do this. And It's a culmination of
Biggly
violating,
wiggly. Biggly
violating
wiggly.
people's rights. Whether he does it in one instance, whether he brags about doing it, or whether he says he's going to do it with premeditated statements.
Hmm.
Violation of any rights, of anybody's rights, is evil in nature because it goes strictly against the adherence of the natural law tenets.
Again, this further stresses the importance of fostering a fluent and working knowledge of our Constitution. To possess such knowledge assists us all in understanding exactly how our Constitution and rights really work. The brash nature of Donald makes me think that he probably does understand the Constitution, yet he doesn't care about it, as I was alluding to earlier. It doesn't register as the supreme law of the land. That makes sense when you stop and think about it. The most important thing to Donald Trump is Donald Trump. For his entire life, he has cared only for himself and about himself and little else. Just look at the carefully crafted public image he conveys to the people. He doesn't want people to consider that he's a mere mortal. Instead, he presents himself as some messianic figure. Folks, that has never turned out well. In every instance where a nation has handed the reins of political power to a self interested megalomaniac, it has resulted in authoritarianism. I do not think that the United States will be an exception to this rule. Yet, I think that the manner in which our founding fathers developed our nation and our governmental structure was specifically intended to prevent such a person from ever coming to power. This is why the First Amendment takes on such great importance. It was intended to protect us from the heavy hand of government. Government, by its nature, is opposed to allowing a population to criticize its actions. It has always seen itself in a light of having all of the answers. However, nothing could be further from the truth. Just look at the way this government has mishandled so many things over the years. It's why I ask, why would you ever entrust your health care to the government when they can't even get the postal service right? And yes, Kasich, I throw that at your father.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to make some form of analogy here, and I'm going to try my best because this is just off the top of my head. With the First Amendment, that is the first step of the government being held accountable by we the people. Everybody wants to talk about, negotiate this, and we'll sit down and talk, and we'll, take care of this, take care of that. That's all fine and well as long as there's palatable actions that can be taken that are not violative of the Constitution. Or it's all well and good until it comes to the point of those talks and negotiations themselves being violative of the Constitution. Now, when I say that this is the first step, it's the first step in holding them accountable, because if they have no idea that they're doing wrong, this is a measure that was put in place by the founding fathers. You voice your opinion, you petition your government for a redress of grievance, basically saying, hey, you can't do that. We don't want you to do that. You're not going to do that. It's like a warning shot to them. And then when they continue to do it, then you take action. And you can only take action if first you speak.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you take action without first speaking, it makes you no different than them. Because then at that point you have chaos.
I think this comes down to a specific realization that we all must make with respect to our system of polity. At the root of our republic is popular sovereignty. I know that we have repeated this numerous times on past episodes, but it is the essence of our government. Without knowledge of this basic fact, it becomes easy to dominate and manipulate the true wielders of sovereignty, we the people. This is
Mhm.
part of the reason that Donald Trump is so dangerous. Like Obama, he uses the Constitution when he thinks it works to his advantage, trying to claim that private citizens were working to curtail his First Amendment rights makes absolutely no sense. That's not what the First Amendment is all about. Yet he continues to repeat this despite having been corrected in numerous social media outlets and sources. Again, if he's claiming that he will hire the best people, why have they not gone out and explained to him how the First Amendment works? He is, after all, seeking the highest office of the land. The only reason he would have any authority comes directly out of the document that he has displayed a woeful understanding of. It's embarrassing to see him display his ignorance of our Constitution on a daily basis. Yet, in the end, he simply doesn't care.
Well, you know who else doesn't care? Adolf Obama. Now, Adolf Obama actually has an understanding of the Constitution.
Mm.
See, he was able to accomplish the things he did because he understood the document well enough to know how to destroy it or attempt to destroy it. Trump just doesn't care. I mean, the Constitution is such a bigly document, he probably wouldn't even be able to hold it with his tiny little hands.
It's the bigliest of bigly documents.
Right. And it's because of his ignorance, because of his lack of understanding on it, that just means that his not caring about it is exemplified, or it's exponentially exemplified, more so than Obama. See, with Obama, we know what to expect. We know how he operates. He's predictable. He follows the same line, the same agenda that all the other Fabian socialists do. Trump is like a wild card. It's a bad hair day in a hurricane is what it is with Trump. That's exactly what he is.
Right. Now, let's take it a step further with regard to Trump and all of these things he said about protesters encroaching upon his First Amendment rights, which, as we pointed out, is simply not the case. On the other hand, he has used the power of local law enforcement and the Secret Service to basically remove all protesters from his rallies and events. In other words, he has used governmental authority and agencies to deprive people of their First Amendment rights. Have we heard the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media bring this up once? No, not once. Oh, and another thing. He's also prohibited certain media personnel and organizations from attending his rallies, like Politico. I guess he has some esoteric belief that they, too, are attempting to abridge his free speech rights. Yet it is he who is abridging the right of a free and open press. Now, you know that we're not big fans of the salivating mainstream media on the Wright Flyer. Despite this, we do believe in the sanctity of our First Amendment rights. Without rights, folks, we have nothing.
See, this premise right here that I'm going to lay out is what completely destroys all of these individuals and entities that are doing their damnedest to destroy the Constitution. It completely destroys any standing whatsoever they have for trying to carry out their agenda. And it shakes them to their core. It scares them so bad because there's an element of guilt that they cannot shake. Okay? And it's simply this. Individuals like myself and Randy, our first Air Marshal Nelson Ward, the vast majority of veterans who took the oath to uphold, protect, and defend the United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We will stand up for everybody's rights from being violated, regardless of the political bent, regardless of their associations and affiliations. That would go to say that if an anchor from CNN was trying to ask any candidate questions, and that candidate just kind of, pushed them aside, and then all of a sudden got irritated with them and had them removed by police escort when they've committed no crime, they've done nothing wrong other than exercising their First Amendment right. We will come to the defense of every single one of those individuals first and foremost. Because if we don't, then we are living a lie ourselves. That would make us frauds and hypocrites. When we gave the pledge that we will uphold and defend and do everything within our power here at the Wright Flyer to maintain and the preservation of the United States Constitution, our shared Constitution, we mean it. We mean what we say, and we do what we say we're going to do.
At this point, I want to take a moment to delve into some of the things that are not protected by the First Amendment. I'm sure that we all know that the courts have worked out a formula where certain types of restrictions may be placed on speech. If that speech poses a threat to society or inhibits some greater purpose. For instance, one cannot merely stand on the stairs of a courthouse and spew profanity while also blocking the entrance to the courthouse itself. This makes sense when you consider that a courthouse is a public building that is designed for the community to engage in their important business, which more often than not directly impacts their fundamental rights. Therefore, by prohibiting access to them or making a nuisance of oneself is not protected by the First Amendment. Now, you can still have your speech. You can still go out, and as long as you're not blocking access, they won't, brush you aside. But if you stand there and make a nuisance of yourself and block access to it, that's when it's a problem, because once again, you begin to encroach upon the rights of your fellow sovereign citizens. And as we've reiterated time and again, our rights end where another sovereign individual's rights begin.
Mm-hmm. Now, I can think of another example, and this is more so akin to what has happened at these Trump rallies.
Mm.
It's where, and it falls, with the fighting words doctrine.
Sure.
Now, an individual, there has to be some kind of level of understanding and the ability for some individual to be able to carry something out. If an individual says, I'm going to take that dump truck over there, pick it up over my head, and smash you to the ground with it, that people would perceive that as being a threat. Well, in order for a threat to actually be perceived as viable, it actually has to be able to be carried out. It has to be believable and be able to be carried out by a reasonable person. I don't know of any individual on this earth that could pick up a dump truck or a garbage truck or any kind of vehicle, wield it over their head, and use it in a comic book fashion or Looney Tune fashion to berate somebody and bludgeon them into the pavement or into the ground with it.
Oh, Trump in his mind could. He's hugely, bigly capable, but in the real world, no.
It's humanly impossible for that to happen. Okay?
Yeah.
So therefore, that's just an individual speaking out on the First Amendment, because there really is not any infringement upon anybody else's rights at that point. Okay, because in order for the infringement to happen, there has to be the perceived danger of bodily harm, which would constitute assault, or the actual action being able to be carried out. If those are not there, then there is no infringement. I point to the yelling fire in a crowded movie theater situation.
Right. And to take that another step, we must take care to note that the courts do go out of their way to ensure that any type of regulation on speech must be narrowly tailored,
Mhm.
meaning specifically drafted to address one particular issue and content neutral. The idea being that we don't want to prohibit activities on a basis of their content or message. Again, this makes sense because it's directly tied into what our founding fathers expected. We protect the right of the citizens to freely express themselves without encumbering the rights of their fellow citizens. That
Mhm.
follows the natural law foundation of our entire republic. This is where a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our Constitution comes into play. By understanding the nature in which our rights work, we also understand exactly what the government can or cannot do. Moreover, it allows us to realize when someone is being disingenuous with respect to their claims of having their rights violated. Thus, it goes to common sense.
Yeah. Well, if common sense was common, everyone would have it.
Sure.
So this notion that Trump has about, I can't have my rallies because, protesters are showing up and violating my First Amendment because I have a right for people to hear my message and blah, 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 blah. You know, God save the quaff.
It's funny. Where does it say you have a right to be heard?
You don't. You
Ah.
don't.
Yes, again, we find that in the mythical article non-section existent clause
Clause
0.
It's just like, and it's the same perception that people have to where they think they have the right to not be offended. Well, guess what? This is exactly what the core premise behind Trump saying these things about his First Amendment being violated. No, he's being offended. He doesn't like it, so he tries to mask it, this instance with something else that doesn't even apply. It's non-applicable because his follicles got hurt. Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, you can't get down with the dandruff if you're not playing with him that way, I guess. The amazing thing about everything that we've been witnessing with respect to this election cycle is just how loose people are with their statements. This is particularly apparent with respect to the Trump camp. And I know you know what I'm talking about here, Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
They throw around conjecture as fact. And then when called to the carpet, they shrug their shoulders and continue to spread the false claims. We've seen this with their attempts to label Cruz as Lion Cruz. Now, I've got to hand it to some of the Cruz crew who have tried to take this back from what Trump did, where it was originally Lion Ted standing up against the detente wing of the gutless opposition party. Well, we're now twisting this around, referring back to Cruz as Lion Cruz. That's huge for two reasons. Firstly, it declaws the attack of Trumpers. And second, it hijacks that lion decal type symbol of the Trump camp. Thus, every time that someone sees the Trump lion, they'll think of Cruz instead. I mean, that's really a brilliant flip. But with respect to the First Amendment, Trump is attempting to speak out of both sides of his mouth. We've all heard him say that he wants to relax the public figure requirement with respect to our libel laws. In fact, you had mentioned this towards the opening of the program. We have those protections for a reason. It's designed to protect the popular sovereigns from a chilling effect regarding the vetting of public figures. If we don't allow the American people to freely discuss without fear of governmental reprisals or without fear of litigation being brought against them, then we are doing a great disservice because we're chilling speech. And Trump utilizes this protection for himself, but wants it limited when said attacks might go against him. It's ridiculous. It shows that he exudes that elitist mentality that is supposedly driving the blind rage that has dominated this election cycle thus far. Reality is being ignored time and again, and it's disgusting. Yet reality doesn't matter to Trump and many of his followers. They just repeat the same lie over and over again, hoping that it will become the truth. In fact, in that sense, they are fulfilling Joseph Goebbels' tenets or principles of propaganda. They figure that repeating the lie will make it seem as though it's the truth. The problem is, as you've mentioned, Jeremy, it's not boomerang proof. We've seen them attempt to call Cruz's wife a prostitute now. We've heard them lie about Cruz and what he said with respect to Trump's wife. This is kindergarten level crap, and it has no place in our open and honest society.
It speaks directly to his narcissism and his elitist mentality. Do as I say, not as I do. And he's emboldened that. He has taken that to the next level when he actually made the comment, I'm going to tell people what to do and they're going to do it. What that means, that has so many deep-rooted connotations of narcissism. We don't even have enough time to touch on all of them.
Right.
In fact, we don't even need to touch on any of them because, again, common sense comes in. Common sense conservatives, people who understand what it is, people who have seen history play out before or have studied history, know that these exact same tactics have been utilized by Stalin, Mussolini, Pol Pot, Hitler, Lenin, the list goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
It is no different. He's behaving in a potentate fashion. And again, people are, just as you said, believing these lies. And now, instead of it being lies to them, it is so entrenched in them that it has become their truth.
Yeah, it's a false reality.
It is a false reality. I believe it was Soren Kierkegaard.
Mm-hmm.
So people are stupid. They will believe a lie, A, if they want it to be true, or B, if they're afraid it's true. That plays right into this.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the false perception of reality that was instituted in them with the blind rage, the blind fury tactic being utilized by Trump, and then him using it and wielding it, smacking people upside the head with it. You know, he created that, and now he's milking it. He's lathering it up as he combs his tiny, beadly, little, non-bigly hands through the mindsets of his littly hands through the mindsets of these individuals.
Yeah.
You know, he has to do it in this fashion because I'm going to tell you right now, folks, he can't put out literature. He can't. His hands aren't big enough to hold a writing utensil. He has to use finger paints.
Well, you mean to tell me that coloring books don't make good political literature?
No, maybe in the Bernie Sanders camp. For Trump, that's a little too advanced.
Yeah. You know, there's another angle I want to touch upon. We know that many have received death threats from the trumpeters. Mm-hmm. I've gotten them. Our first Air Marshal, Nelson Ward, has gotten them. We know that Glenn Beck and various other people who don't support Trump have received them as well. This makes no sense. Do the followers think this sort of behavior will actually make us gravitate towards their candidate? It won't. It's stupidity to think that this is a way to make people turn to your candidate. Of course, it causes us to ask the nagging question of why is Trump's camp the only one that has seen the outbreaks of violence? No other candidate has seen this unprecedented amount of violence. Trumpeters will claim that this is merely because George Soros and the left are specifically and explicitly targeting their poor messianic hero, Trumpus.
And now
That's a load
creating
of
voter fraud.
bovine excrement. It's a load of bovine excrement. We all know that it's because he incites violence. The Soros angle is a red herring, folks. I say this because we know that Trump got funding for his Chicago tower with financial support from none other than Georgie Boy Soros. So it's quite clear to me, at least, that he's lying about all of this. But that's just par for the course with Trump and this bizarre 2016 election cycle. Now, some of the Trumpsters are trying to claim that some obscure federal statute from the Wilson administration prohibits the protesting at events where Secret Service members are present. Firstly, this law has been struck down by Congress. Not to mention, there have been numerous court cases that have been heard in the 99 years since that statute was passed. Again, this clearly demonstrates a lack of understanding of the way that our legal system works with respect to Trump and Team Trump.
Well, let's break that down a little bit. So they're claiming that it is illegal for people to protest where Secret Service has been employed for candidates or even people who are already elected. Yeah, I think the First Amendment actually pulls rank on that.
It does, through this little thing called Article 6, Clause 2.
That's right. Yeah, that pesky, petulant little nuisance of an article, the Supremacy Clause. That unruly little child, throwing a tantrum and setting things right and causing people. How dare it?
Yeah.
That's just, that just needs to be spanked and put to bed without any dinner. Seriously, folks, if we are not able to protest and voice our opinions at these rallies, if that was the case, then every single election at every single level where the Secret Service was employed at events would not have been able to take place. But yet they have. And nobody has brought this up, like Randy said, in 99 years. And it's Trump's camp that's bringing it up. Now, why? What hairnet did they pull this out of?
The magical farting rainbow unicorn happy chorus one, I guess. I mean, when you stop and think about it, what goes to the heart of American history? What was it that our founding fathers did? Why did they say that the people should always be allowed to gather to petition the government for a redress of grievances? The reason is that the crown, the centralized authority that they were fighting in that long and bloody struggle known as the American War of Independence, was denying the people the ability to say, hey, the government is working against us. They were trying to hammer down on those who would protest against the deliberate and unlawful actions of the central government. But you see, Trumpus is a bit of a Trumpitarian in that he's an authoritarian, but not too bright about it. His bigly brain just doesn't seem to wrap around this. So, in other words, what he's trying to say is that you can't do something that is quintessentially American, something that has been at the root of our DNA since the inception of this country over 230 years ago. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. That is a stupid position to hold. And yes, the followers that buy into that, I'm sorry, I can't sugarcoat this. They're stupid if they believe that. It goes to reason that what they're doing stands against everything that we stand for as a nation. That is a problem that is not being discussed by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the Salivating Mainstream Media.
But yet, at the same time, Trumpolini claims that he has unified the party. He's brought more people into the party. No, what you have done was you have forced the party to leave the people. You've kicked everybody else out of the party that has a sane mind, and you've replaced them with individuals that can't think for themselves. That's not unification.
They're mirror image carnival barkers just like he is.
That's alienation. That's exactly what that is. That's abandonment. That's reckless abandonment.
Mm.
And yet you want to talk about people abandoning their constituents when you made that stupid statement.
That was back in Nevada, right?
Back in Nevada. All the other candidates have left. They got up, shook a few hands, and then they moved on to other states. And yet Ted Cruz is still there.
You know, it's funny. Thinking about this, we all thought it was weird when Dr. Ben Carson came out and endorsed the small-handed child Quaff Wonder.
The small gifted hands.
Yes, the gifted jazz hands performer. Okay, he's got jazz hands performing. I wouldn't want to see a marionette program done by Trump. It would be vastly boring because he couldn't manipulate it correctly. And that would bother him. Bother him because he loves manipulating. But Dr. Carson basically went on to that failing show known as The View today, and he had to defend Trump coming out and saying all of these atrocious things about Ted Cruz's wife, Heidi Cruz. And he said he didn't condone it. And again, it just goes as a pure example of just the stark differences that should exist and the differences that one would think would exist between a Ben Carson who went out there and said that he was staying in the race for as long as he did, which was admittedly too long, to put out a message of hope and bringing civility back to government and being right and proper with the people. Then he goes and he backs Donaldus. It means that he's a dupe. He's been duped by the quaff, the small-handed quaff of quaffs. What good does that do him? He's obliterated his own public image, and he has allowed Trump to make him look like a fool time and again. Maybe he can go buy a new set of clothing. I don't know. I'm so fed up with it.
When individuals, do stuff like that, whatever credibility they may have had, and I said this before, when he came out and endorsed Trump, whatever credibility Cruz or Carson may have had at that point with us, or at least with me, gone. Completely gone.
It's gone with me as well.
It's gone. And now, not only is it gone, but because of these statements, there's no possibility of it ever coming back. That ship has sailed. And you know what?
That ship sailed, that ship has sailed and then capsized before leaving port.
Well, no. That ship is known as the Trump-tanic. And it is going to sink. It has sunk. People just haven't realized yet because... Well,
no, it's not even the Trump-tanic. It's the Costa Trump-tortia. It's sunk in shallow water because he is so shallow.
It's beyond belief that individuals in this country actually operate this way.
I know.
Being a kind of play on words here. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Yeah.
When Trump says Oh, I'm surrounding myself with smart people, winners, this and that, but yet doesn't name any of them. Maybe it's because he doesn't want to put their names out there. Oh, I don't know, because maybe we'll look into them and find out who exactly they are and expose them for what exactly they are.
Or maybe it's because it just changes on a daily basis. I don't think he can be consistent about anything other than being consistently inconsistent. That is the pattern that we've seen with Trump throughout this 2016 presidential election cycle. He doubles down on his inconsistency, and his followers just buy it because it seems like, oh, this is exciting. In fact, he even had one of his spokespersons go out to the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the Salivating Mainstream Media and say, of course we don't know that Trump is conservative. That's part of what makes this so exciting. That's exciting? That's absolutely terrifying, especially when our nation is in the midst of an identity crisis, the likes of which it has not seen in living memory.
I'm going to take it a step further. With regards to these so-called smart people, I don't think they even exist. I don't think Trump has a single individual that he has picked or chose to be a part of this grand follicle frenzy.
Well, think back to what he said about foreign policy. Who is his advisor other than
shows.
TV? Himself.
Yeah.
Not even just the shows, himself, because he has a bigly brain.
Is he like one of those little mogwais? Remember the show Gremlins?
Yeah.
Gizmo. Did his hair get wet and spit out these fur balls that are going to morph into these smart people, but are going to end up eating something after midnight and just become complete destructive little green goblins and gremlins? Is that what it is?
Probably.
He has no clue. He claims that he's a smart guy. No, you're not. If you were smart, the smartest thing you would do, the first smartest thing you would do would be shut that trap of yours. Number one. Number two, the next smartest thing, get the hell out of the way and stop roadblocking the fixing of this nation. Stop putting up roadblocks and hurdles for we the people to right the ship that you decided you want to, latch onto the helm of and take control and completely, utterly destroy us. Just stop. Go away.
I want to
dandruff in the breeze and fly away.
I want to tie something in to this message that we've mentioned of anger and the way that the anger tries to go in and obfuscate the use of the First Amendment, and that supposedly made his people more angry. Steve Deese had a piece out on Conservative Review today, and he was dead on when he said that Trump is a bully, and that the only way to deal with a bully is to throttle him, and that Cruz just needs to send a right hook at Trump for going after his wife. And I think Cruz did that today when he called Trump a sniveling little coward.
Yes.
I would have said that he was a sniveling, small-handed coward. You see, you have to go to his insecurities. As a bully, that is all he's going to focus upon. In fact, he comes out and he says, I've never heard of this before, except that he still sends photographs to the first guy who ever wrote that Spy magazine article that mentioned his oddly shaped hands. And he sends these photos circling his hands, the proportions of his hands, with a gold Sharpie, as if that somehow doesn't make him seem any more creepy than he already is.
Hand halos. He's got hand halos. Really?
It gives a whole new meaning of laying the hands on to someone.
Yes.
I mean, good Lord.
These not to throw, to try and steer this into a religious direction, but I think it has to be said that mentioning of false prophets. Beware of false prophets.
Mm.
Beware of charlatans. That's what Trump is. That's what he is. See, this is his religion. His religion is himself. And he's trying to make everybody else succumb to his religion. And he's doing it in a volatile fashion. In fact, I'm going to say that he's doing this almost to the magnitude of what ISIS does or radical Islam does.
Coiffus.
Yes. Quaffus.
Yes.
It's he is forcing people to convert to his religion, being him, or if they don't, he has them beheaded, figuratively speaking, by silencing them and squashing their First Amendment.
Yeah, and that ties into the most important thing that we can provide to you, our cherished listening passengers and audience, is a better understanding of our Constitution and our rights. We must be responsible stewards for the up-and-coming generations. Without taking the principled stances that we do for the truth, we make ourselves vulnerable to the twisted machinations of wannabe potentates. Of course, that's exactly what Trump is, as Jeremy was saying. Look at the way he postures himself. Listen to the language he utilizes. This is unprecedented in American history. Never before have we seen a candidate openly attempt to use the Constitution against itself in such an open and obvious fashion. Yes, it's true that Barack Obama has attempted to utilize the Constitution against itself, yet Trump takes it to a whole other level. He wants to be mastermind of everything. He's abrasive, aggressive, and arrogant. No matter what lengths we go to, and folks, we've gone to extraordinary lengths in order to show the truth to the vast majority of Trump's followers, it still simply doesn't matter. They just don't care. You can show them the law. You can show them that it's accurate. You can show them everything, and they'll just deny it. They'll claim it as merely our opinion and that we're losers because we don't support Trump. It's like waking up to see that a bunch of petulant children now hold the right to vote and make very important decisions for the nation as a whole. In fact, we would call the decisions, so that they could understand what I'm saying here, bigly decisions. Facts mean nothing. Emotion means everything. It's usually bigly, mostly important. Mostly. We are better than that in this great republic. Yet the blind rage and anger of some, stirred up by the reckless, salivating mainstream media, has made things worse. I can honestly say I've never seen things this bad. What's more, I think Jeremy would concur with this sentiment. It's like we're living in another nation.
It's a bizarro world.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre world. I'm going to take it a step further.
Yeah.
We are better than that. But even more so than that, we are smarter than that. But it seems that everybody's latched onto this making America great again. All this nonsense of, oh, it's stopped being great and we have to make it great again and blah. No, we have to make America smart again. That's the key. See, we are smarter than behaving like petulant little children, throwing Trumper tantrums to get what they want because somebody says, no, here's the law, says you can't do that. I don't care. His name is on his clothing, so that makes him important. Really? Really? So that's what it's come down to. They don't care because he's accomplished bigly things. He's a bigly businessman. He's the
smally hands.
With smally hands. He's the winliest, bigliest businessman there is. And he can't do any wrong except
Trump University.
Perpetuate, aside from all of those insignificant things in comparison to lying to the American people.
Mm-hmm.
That is the bigliest thing that he has done that is the most detrimental to this election cycle. It's not just that he's made a mockery of it. He has completely destroyed our electoral process by doing this. He has dumbed it down so much that, again, we have to make America smart again.
Yeah.
He has created a breed of ignorance that surpasses any other. Now, let me remind you folks, ignorance can be fixed. Stupidity lasts a lifetime. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say that all Trump supporters do not have redeeming qualities. In fact, we've seen some Trump supporters actually come away from Trump because they came to understand, they actually accepted the fact that he is detrimental. He does not mean what he says. He has an ulterior motive, and he's going to use that to destroy our rights.
Yeah, folks,
And
it's safe
they
to
woke up to
say
that.
it's safe to say that Trump has been the one driving the divisive narrative of this campaign. He likes insulting people. It's as though he cannot feel good about himself unless he's putting someone else down. This is classic bullying behavior. Let's face it, Trump is nothing more and nothing less than an abject bully. And that is what Steve Deese was hitting on in his piece. In my mind, this is enough to disqualify him from securing the highest office in the land. He's mentally unstable. You know, they attack Heidi Cruz for having a bout of depression some 10 plus years ago, over a decade ago. They attack and impugn her character because of that Super PAC ad that we mentioned at the outset of tonight's program. This is stupid. This demonstrates how the Trump camp loves to play fast and loose with the truth. They wanted to use this as an opportunity to personally attack Cruz's wife. Heidi Cruz is an honorable, accomplished, and upstanding woman. And one strand of her hair is smarter than all of the coifs and his
combined.
All of his hairnet followers. Yes, his coiffettes. Yeah. Yet Trump is unhinged. He's pissed that his wife's nearly nude image that she chose to put in a magazine is now coming back to haunt them. Listen, Trumper and your wife, the Czech thumper, actions have consequences. If you're unwilling to accept responsibility for your own choices, that is no one else's fault than your own. Grow up. We're sick and tired of the way that you're denigrating the rest of the nation.
You know, where's this tolerance that everybody speaks of? Where's the tolerance that everybody speaks of? Trump said, I'm not politically correct, blah, blah, but yet you want to side with the Fabians. You want to be a fascist, fastback, bareback, unicorn riding, coif warrior. How dare you? How dare you? Here's the thing.
Your Czech thumper cheerleader.
That was great. How dare you attack an individual who has a legitimate reason for doing what she did? What you have done is not only have you before besmirched, degraded, and insulted individuals,
particularly women,
particularly women first, and then the poorly educated, and now you are going after people who have a legitimate ailment. A legitimate ailment. Actually, this isn't the first time. Remember the journalist that had
that suffered from that disability.
That disability, and you sat there mocking him, looking like a wet fish out of water, standing up in front of the podium, flopping around, hands wailing, this and that. How dare you, you insignificant, moronic baboon.
Hey, here's a thought. At least Heidi Cruz can speak English without an accent.
Yeah, not to insult baboons. Because at this point,
the Czech thumper has a little trouble with English. Now, granted, I can't speak Czechoslovakian or Thumperthrakian language, but if
Or
he's going to,
Quafanese.
yeah, or Quafanese, this is ridiculous. We need to get out of the gutter. Civil discourse matters.
What
This
you
is-
have done, hair quaff, what you have done, attacking a woman who's diagnosed with depression, a clinical illness. You have attacked it's everything that you've rolled up before, and you've attacked individually. You rolled up all in one shot and doubled down with it. You attacked a woman with a disability, a clinical disability.
And then he goes out and his little his coiffettes run out there and tweet these images of Heidi Cruz taken from a still shot, kind of a moving shot that they then froze it to make her look very unbecoming. And they use that to try and then show his former pornographic Czech thumper wife as some paragon of beauty. I'm sorry. This is baloney. It's bovine excrement to the worst degree. It is beneath contempt. It is beyond ill repute because it's a level of stupidity, a level of nastiness that will not be tolerated. And we here demand that Donaldus apologize. We demand it.
It's evil. It's sheer evil. I have friends who suffer from depression. I have friends who have PTSD. I have friends and family members that have various different ailments. What you have done when you insulted her and attacked her in that way, you have attacked all of them. And remember what I said several episodes ago. When you attack individuals in an unruly, archaic, troglodytic fashion, whether it's one person or a group of people, I'm going to consider it to be an attack on all. And I'm going to call you out on it, and I'm going to hold you accountable for it. And let me remind you of this. Let me remind you of this, Donald. There is nothing you are going to do to stop me. You do not have any authority. You will never have any authority. You are not big enough to stop me from
Particularly his hands.
You will not stop us in doing this. You can't. And if you try to resist, resistance is futile. Period. You will not stop this. We caught the boomerang, and now it is coming back to give you a haircut.
Here's a thought. Why is it that Trump never seems to marry American women? He always talks about, stopping illegal aliens. Yeah.
American exceptionalism, being winners, this and that,
Made in China. Well, his wife was made in Czechoslovakia.
You know what it is, Randy? You know what it is? You know why John Kasich never got the memo or the postcards or anything? It's because his dad had him wrapped up in dealing with all these mail order brides.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Oh, but you can't attack. You just went out. The thing is, we're justified in this because
he opened the door.
You brought it up. You opened the door just a little bit. Well, guess what? We kicked it off its hinges. You want to play? You want to throw down? You want to think that you're going to do this? You want to consider yourself to be a winner and a big contender? Guess what? Step into the ring because you're going to lose. Why? Because you're a loser. That's right. Put up or shut up. And again, I offer this invitation to you. Invitation. You can come on our show. We'll be glad to have you. And we'll give you as much time as you need to set us straight.
Bigly amount of time. It'll be such a bigly amount of time, you'll be so tired of it being a bigly amount of time.
If need be, it will be a filibuster proportions amount of time if you so decide. But I'm not going to hold my breath because you're not going to show up because you are a sniveling coward.
Yeah, and Cruz was right to call him that. Cruz was right to call him that. And you know, folks, so Trump is once again inciting violence. He's trying to say that he'll spill the beans on Cruz's wife. Sure, that's a threat. That's veiled in its intention. But we know what he means, that he wants to assassinate her character. This is the lowest I've seen political fights go in my entire, albeit relatively short, life. It's despicable, and it has no place in an open and honest society like the United States. I also think that this is something that Heidi Cruz would be well in her rights to sue over, even though she's considered a public figure. There's actual malice behind what Trump has said. That means the public figure defense, the very one he wants to get rid of, doesn't apply anymore. And she has grounds to move forward with a cause of action for damages.
Now, I'm going to go out and say this, too. All the supporters are going to say, well, you know, you're talking about, you know, Trump being down at this level. Well, Ted Cruz sunk down to his level, too. No, Ted Cruz was dragged down to that level. Because
Ted Cruz is defending his wife. What any man would be expected to do.
Exactly. That's exactly where I'm going with this. Because sometimes you have to go down to that level in order to set things right and to make sure that it never rises above that ever again. And that's called having integrity. Something that Trump has never even heard of, more than likely. He's never exhibited it. In my eyes,
Trump-tegrity. He thinks it's Trump-tegrity.
Trump-tegrity. Well, yeah, slinging mud in the worst kind of way. See, this is part of his agenda. This is part of his Trumpaganda. To bring the candidates down at this level and making them fight down there. But guess what? There's a problem. There's a flaw with that. You forced Ted Cruz to go down to that level because his integrity, his moral compass, his ethical barometer dictate that he has to. Because his honor, what he holds true and cherished, his word, his vow to his wife, forces him to do this. It's not you dragging him down. All you did was basically cut the floor out from underneath him, and now he has to stand there and fight. And you know what? Bad mistake on your part, Trump.
It's too bad we can't have a Burr-Hamilton style debate here, because it's warranted. I have a feeling Cruz would win that too. He's one hell of a shot.
Oh, but the thing is, it is in a way a Burr-Hamilton style debate. And the shot's going to come.
Assassination, yeah.
The shot's going to come. The shot's going to come. And it's going to land, and it's going to be a dead blow. Because it has to happen. It's kind of like, in baseball, you have the batter at the plate, he gets a single, he has to go to first base. Why? But that's how the game is played. Ted Cruz has to defend the integrity and honor of his wife. Why? Because he took a vow to do so. Until death do they part. And any man, anybody who would call themselves a man or claim to be a man that doesn't do this is not a man, will never be a man, will never understand what that means. And if there are men out there listening to this that happen to be Trump supporters, and you disagree with this, guess what? You do so at your own peril. Because if you cannot understand, you claim to be a man yourself, you claim that you would do the same thing, but yet you would still support Trump and his actions because you're still latching on to that emotion called blind fury, then you need some self-examination for your own good. You need some time to think for yourself.
And I want to step out
from the media.
And I want to step out here and address something that the Trump dumpsters are trying to say. Because they've come out and they said that this was, quote unquote, Lion Ted's super PAC. No, the PAC is not affiliated with any candidate. It is a violation of federal election laws for Cruz to have any association with the super PAC to try and dictate how they, say certain things. Yes, they can make ads that are supportive of him, but he cannot have any connection to it. He cannot have any control over the message. That is the way the federal law works. But once again, with the Trumpster divers, it just doesn't seem to connect. Like their gilded coiffed master and his check thumper wife, they don't make the connection. It's as though the little signals have gotten crossed that the law prohibits Ted from having anything to do with that. So once again, they just repeat a lie. It's Trumpaganda through and through.
But here's the thing. There's an individual that actually had to come back and explain himself, who happens to be a Trump supporter, and explain himself. Sean Hannity? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He had to explain himself. He had to come out and admit.
You're a great American, throw football. Wait.
Come out and admit that. And he did come out and admit, and kudos to him. I give him credit for doing this and taking the high road and doing what was right and establishing the fact that Trump and this super PAC are not connected.
You mean Cruz and the super PAC are not connected?
Cruz, correct. Yeah. He had to come out and admit that. Now, that probably pains him. It put egg on his face because having to admit something like that is enough in and of itself to where it negates any legitimacy of support that he may have for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Trump's campaign and supporters that are stirring this, that are perpetuating this Trumpaganda that all the super PAC and Cruz are connected, blah, blah, blah. And when Hannity, one of Trump's supporters, actually has to come out and say that they're not, how damaging is that to the Trump campaign?
Well, we've already seen that there are, national polls out there saying that Cruz is starting to gain on him. And with this 2-week gap, or a little less than that now, between the next
13 days or so.
Yeah, between Wisconsin, this is going to damage him. Mm-hmm. And folks, do not think that this must by necessity go to a contested convention. The math shows that it does not have to go to that. It's narrow, it's steep, it's difficult. But Trump didn't get a single blessed delegate out of Utah.
Which, by the way, the Trump supporters are claiming election fraud. Uh-huh. But yet, in Arizona, you had individuals that were turned away from the polling booth. I don't know if anybody caught, and I didn't catch it today myself, but our first Air Marshal, Nelson Ward, brought it to my attention earlier today that Mike Broomhead, was on Glenn Beck's show today and conveyed some information that is very detrimental. He said he was at some of these polling places where individuals were standing in line. They closed the polls. When they closed the polls, these individuals were still in line waiting to vote. Now, if you're standing in line waiting to vote, they close the polls, they can't turn you away because they are abridging your right to vote. Number one, that's a felony. Number two, when they closed the polls, they had already declared Trump to be the winner of Arizona. What Broom had witnessed was Trump supporters going up to the polls and telling people, Trump has been declared the winner of Arizona, you might as well go home and not vote, and people went away. Now, you want to talk about election fraud. That is election fraud. That is voter intimidation, folks. That is voter intimidation. It would have been no different at that instance if the Black Panthers would have showed up like they did in Pittsburgh and threatened people with billy clubs and nightsticks if they were not going to vote for Obama. It would be no different. And in fact, it is no different.
Yeah, it's reflexive of this disease that is running through the country right now. And that disease is blind rage. If you allow your rage to blind you, you become malleable like putty in the hands of charlatans and snake oil salesmen. We have seen this time and again with Donaldus. But I think the tide is turning, folks. I think that he has bitten off more than he can chew, that this is going to come back to bite him in the posterior because of the way that he has been acting, because of the way that he just slings mud without any control, without any reservation. You know, it's not that I'm saying that this is for politically correct reasons. No. Civility has no connection with political correctness. Civility has a connection to what it means to be a popular sovereign and to respect the dignity of our fellow individual popular sovereigns. That
A
is
sense of
why,
purity.
yes, and it's because we have to come together. It's why we came together to create a more perfect union. Look at the opening lines to the preamble to our Constitution. It clearly indicates why we have to be able to live with each other. And what Trump is doing is driving a wedge between American citizens. He's pitting American. And for what? What purpose are we going to get out of this? What benefit, what earthly benefit could we get from any and all of this nonsense that he has just been perpetuating throughout this entire 2016 election cycle? I cannot see a single benefit.
No, not one. Other than, Trump getting fatter pockets and
Yeah.
Trump getting what he wants because he only cares about himself. That's what this is all for. And it's proof positive that he doesn't care about this country. He doesn't care about the civility. And again, civility is a form of purity.
Mm-hmm.
There's pureness there. Political correctness is a disease. Diseases are known to be impurities.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors will and clinicians will tell people a disease or a bacteria, whatever the case is, an ailment, is an impurity of the body.
It's a toxin.
It's a toxin. We, the people, are the body of this republic.
Yeah, we're what is known as the body politique.
Political correctness is an impurity that has infected the body politique. And the only way to get rid of it, to become pure again in the form of civility, we need to eradicate political correctness. This is why we have declared war on political correctness and all of its foot soldiers.
And to tie this back into the First Amendment, you have to realize that the cancerous doctrine of political correctness is being wielded as a weapon against our freedom of expression. It's being used in a way to deprive us of our rights. That is what the Fabian socialists designed it and intended for it to do. And we cannot allow them to be successful. That is going back to the original iconography of the Fabian Society, which started in Great Britain back in the 19th century. It was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Could you not see a better personification of that iconography than Donald Trump? Donald Trump is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He speaks a quasi-good game. I'm not going to say it's a bigly good game because he uses words that don't exist like bigly, but
Sure.
He tries to be the Pied Piper and has, to his credit, successfully been the Pied Piper of disillusioned conservatives throughout the United States, and he's doing it to push this wedge in to divide us. I think that either way, he stands to win. If it puts Hillary into office, he wins because he's good friends with her. After all, she was at his wedding to the Czech thumper. Then it also stands to benefit him if he somehow does, by some cruel twist of fate, secure the election. Then he can enrich himself even further. And he's doing it as a way to rape the United States. Folks, he has dropped his pants and he is attempting to rape the United States and all of the citizens. That is intolerable. That is insufferable. It is unacceptable. We will not tolerate that in this great representative republic of ours. It is time for we, the American people, to come together in solidarity and unity to send an unresounding message to the hairpiece, the quaff, and to let him know he is unacceptable. Don't ask me to ever vote for him because, first of all, you can't tell me how to exercise my fundamental and inalienable right to vote, just as I can't tell you how to exercise yours. But I will not vote for him because, to me, he is unacceptable for all of the reasons that we have listed out throughout the entirety of this program and on past episodes of the Wright Flyer.
And again, we're not going to disparage people for the way they choose to vote. In fact,
No.
We applaud you for voting. See, to me, not voting, and I've had people ask me, well, if Trump gets the nomination, you're just going to stay home and vote. No, I'm going to go out and vote. I'm going to go out and vote for a reason that many other people may not even think of. For all of our men and women in uniform, past, present, and future, who have put their lives on the line to preserve and protect my fundamental and unalienable rights, for me to not exercise them in the full capacity as a sovereign wielder of authority in this country, it is nothing but a slap. No, it's not even a slap in the face. It's a spit in their face for what they've done, the blood they've shed, the sacrifices they've made. For me to not go out and vote would be a complete besmirchment on them. And I will never besmirch the military. As far as I'm concerned, what I do, the actions I've done, the things I've chosen to do in my life don't even hold a candle to those individuals. One would be so lucky. One would be so lucky to even be able to walk for a minute in their shoes. So not going out to vote.
So much to this community, to this country, and to our people. And to say that to not vote for Donald Trump, to vote third party, that besmirches it? No, it doesn't. Not voting is what besmirches their memory. Not voting is what insults them.
And not supporting individuals for exercising their vote, whoever it may be for, even if it's for the Whore of Babylon, the Hildebeest. Guess what? Any Hillary supporters that are going to vote for Hillary, regardless of what the reason is, I support your right to vote for her. Because if I didn't, it would be no different than me staying home and not voting at all. It would be the same spit upon the face of those men and women. Remember what has been said about our veterans and our military. All gave some, but some gave all.
Mm-hmm. We have to stand in solidarity and unity as a people for a greater good. That is what has been lost, particularly with respect to this 2016 presidential election cycle thus far. We see that it's no longer about the greater good of the nation, that there are too many people that are trying to make this personal. And Donald J. Trump, Trumpolini, the Quaffmeister, he is the one that is leading this charge. He is the one that is leading the devolution or de-evolution of the American atmosphere, the American polity, the American sovereignty. We have to take a step back and take measure of all that is important to us as popular sovereigns in this country. It is our duty and our obligation to proactively maintain the fundamental and inalienable rights that have been endowed to us by our Creator. And to do that, we have to understand it. But more so, we have to be civil towards one another. Because if we're not civil towards one another, then this perpetual union cannot be perpetual. It cannot be a voluntary union either. Because if you then deny someone their right to vote, as we heard from the polling stations in Arizona, that goes against all that we hold near and dear in this great representative republic. Again, this is why it is so dangerous when they loosely throw around the term that the United States of America is a democracy. We never have been a democracy, and God willing, we never will be, because a democracy only recognizes the sovereign rights of the majority. That means a tyranny of the majority. That is unacceptable. And again, this is why we come on to the program to provide you with this information. We want to empower you so that we can secure the future of this country for generations to come. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I'm Randy Wright, your captain, and joining me is my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. We would like to take this opportunity to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. We also invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns either here on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page or our Google Plus page. And you can follow us on Twitter with the Twitter handle @RadioAviationEX. @RadioAviationEX, that's all one word, folks. And there you will find our departure board, in which you can find my personal Twitter account, Jeremy's personal Twitter account, and our Cafe Press account, where we have a bunch of goodies for you at reasonable prices, because we're reasonable men. Unlike The Reasonable Person in Law, which is a fiction, we are real. And we are reasonable. All right, folks, thank you again. We will see you next time. Do take care.